speakers all the way from USA. And we're going to have a brief introduction of our speakers. We're going to share with us their educational background and a highlight of their professional experience. And that is Dr. Ishiada Kamanu and Joan Marime. Please, you can start off with Joan Marime. You can just share maybe your slides if you have, and we can proceed over to Dr. Ishiada. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, I was thinking we were gonna do a Q&A, but I can share my slides too. So give me a second. Maybe doctor, because I need to get them. I have them prepared, but I need to get them. So maybe the doctor would want to start first as I get my slides together.
All right, Joan, take your time.
Mark, can you enable sharing?
I just did that. Possible on your end? Is it not?
It says host disable participant screen share.
Yeah, because I only need the speakers to share. Good.
See, hey everyone, can you hear me? Can you see me? Can you see the slides?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we can hear you.
Sir.
We can hear you, Doctor.
Yeah, you know, I hate Zoom, right? You know, I don't even know what I'm doing right now.
I know why, because you promote
So, yeah, while Joanne gets sorted, how about I do this? How about I kind of introduce myself, and I'll present a couple of slides just as a way to frame what my career journey has been, because my understanding is that that's what everyone is interested in, is what are the skills in your career that are going to help you upskill. So by name of introduction, my name is Dr. Kamano Ishada. I'm based out of Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a technologist, whatever that means, and we'll redefine that as we go through this discussion. But basically, I've been in tech companies for a really long time. And I also want to be able to define what a tech company is and what careers in tech actually are. But for now, I'll say I'm a technologist. I'm also a guest lecturer. I've lectured in universities both here in the US and in Kenya. In fact, I was very fortunate. 3 days ago, I was at USIU. Shout out to Professor Otiende for inviting me to talk to students about the same topic. Let's see, what else? I'm also really passionate about organizational behavior, and more specifically, the people in an organization and how we can ensure that people sort of are able to fulfill their biggest potential. So that's a huge area of study for me, a huge area of research, and more specifically, employee empowerment is where I land. So this first slide is just a little bit of my corporate and academic journey. I could spend a lot of time talking about my personal journey, but that's maybe for another day. So in terms of my corporate and academic journey, I have an associate's degree in psychology from a community college in San Diego. I have a bachelor's degree in telecommunications management from DeVry University. I have a master's degree in internet technology from the University of Georgia. And then I have a doctorate in organizational behavior from Georgia State University. And the reason I mention all that is because as we go through this discussion, you will see that there's not a linear path when it comes to career progression. There's not always a linear path when you're trying to achieve some of the things you want to achieve. And to be honest, sometimes you don't even know what the future holds. And so I want to make sure that by seeing my non-linear path, some of you may be able to connect with that and say, oh, wow, okay, he can do psychology, but still work at Google, right? You know, those kind of things. In terms of my corporate career, I've just highlighted the ones that I think are relevant. Obviously, I've worked in other organizations in the past, both in Kenya and in Atlanta. But I would say my huge start was in Union Bank of California, where I was doing a lot of data entry. I worked at Excel, which was a startup company. I worked at Verizon, which was a very mature telco company, almost like, let's say, Safaricom. And then now for the last 7 years, I've been at Google. In terms of roles, I've had a number of different roles, some of them very technical, some of them what I would call adaptive. I've done maybe what you'd call my technical learning is in networking and security domain. But then my adaptive learning has been in process engineering, in project management, and in leadership. And so that's what I also want to share with you is what's the difference between sort of the technical skill set that some of us may be learning, but also the adaptive skill set that's required to really progress in your career. So because of that, I wanted to at least lay a little foundation of what I've done so that when we get to Q&A, we can talk about some of those experiences. So I'm going to leave it at that and turn it over back to Betty. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ishada, for that. And we are going to, I hope, Joanne, you're ready now.
Yes, I'm ready now.
Perfect.
Yeah, finally, I'm ready now. Okay.
Too early for the sitting room.
Let me,
Other rooms, yeah.
hopefully I can be able to share. Perfect. Here we go. All righty. Let me see if I can make it bigger. Okay, are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Let me make you smaller. All right. So thank you guys for joining. And just to let you know a little bit about myself. So my name is Joanne Marime. I was born and raised in Kenya, just like most of you on here. I have no idea what just happened to my presentation. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I was just born and raised in Kenya, just like most of you. I'm the baby in my family. And both of my parents were teachers and educators. And just like you, since I was there, I think was 2-3 months ago, I was back in Kenya and I heard a lot of positive feedback, when we were at the conference there. And one of the themes that was there was, listen, it's a struggle, right? And I can tell you from my own personal story, it's been an incredible struggle. I was, always a smart kid. I've always been a smart kid. I've always gotten all A's. I went to the Alliance, as everybody always wants to say that. And then I went to Jomo Kenyatta University for my undergrad, which was amazing. And I thought for sure, once I got, this computer science degree and once I became a software engineer, I would just jump out and graduate and my amazing job would land on my feet and everything would be perfect. But boy, was I wrong. That wasn't what happened. So, I got out and for the rest of my 20s, it was and excuse my English, it was a shit show. Yeah, it was really tough for me. I remember, I worked at Barclays Bank and we were laid off because like in every other industry, as you can see, there's really no job security per se that you can talk about. Job security comes from within, and I'll touch that, about that towards the end. But the most important thing is it was hard. And I remember being homeless at times. I remember working in Dandora, living in Kibera. I remember couch surfing from one person's house to the next because, life was hard. And so that could be your story. You might be wondering, hey, I just graduated. I know I'm smart. I know I have all these things, but what is wrong? What is wrong? There's something that's not working right here. And you might be the person that's saying, hey, I want to be like Joanne. I want to be, in these big tech companies and all that. And I'm here to tell you it's absolutely possible. If I did it, if I, the girl with the orange hair from Yamira with the funny accent, came to America and cracked the code and is out here living a dream life, my dream life. Your life doesn't have to be like mine, but for me, I dreamt that I wanted to work at Microsoft a long time ago. But as the previous speaker has said, it's not a linear path. His path is very different, from what he's been able to do as compared to me. right? But again, that shows you that you can indeed do it all. So I moved from, Kenya, and I had the privilege of coming to the US. And I knew I did not want to do the same thing that I was doing before, because the definition of insanity is doing exactly the same thing and hoping for different results. So I knew there was something that I was missing in my 20s. So I got into the US at 30 years old. So I know Kenya inside and out. I know it. I know the struggle. I understand. I lived in Nairobi for maybe 15, 16 of those years. So I understand what it takes to struggle. And so when I got here, I knew I needed to do something different. And the first thing I did was I hired a career coach. I went to school at the same time. So going to school is important. I'm here to tell you, getting those skills is absolutely important. But the question you need to be asking yourself is, how am I going to get the return on investment when it's all said and done? Okay. So we are here to talk about what it takes to get into tech. So my question to you would be, what are you willing to do differently, right, to land you that dream job? What should you be doing today to get you there? Okay. And part of it is going to have to be knowledge gathering, because even the Bible says, my people perish because of lack of knowledge. So you have the knowledge, you have the book smart, you have the degree, but then how are you going to convert that into actual money? How are you going to convince somebody who is sitting at the Microsoft headquarters, at the Google headquarters, at whatever company you want to work in, at Cisco, wherever, that you're the right person who can come in, solve the problems they're currently having, so that then you exchange your skills for their money, right? So one of the things that I do very well is, not only am I I'm a senior program manager at Microsoft, and I've been also very blessed to have worked at ExxonMobil, one of the biggest oil and gas companies in the world. I worked in finance there. I was a finance analyst, and then I went on and became a program manager. I traveled all over the world doing crazy things that I never thought I would ever do. I moved on from there. I went into Amazon at AWS. I finally got the opportunity to use my computer science degree that I had not used the entire time in my 20s, right? And so for those people wondering, how do I, pivot from a different career into tech? It's entirely possible. I'm here to let you know it's very, very possible. And then now I work as a senior program manager in the cloud and AI space at our Azure Core Engineering Corporation at Microsoft here in Austin, Texas. So I share my story to let you know that, yes, I had bumps on the road. Yes, I had crazy times when I cried and I wanted to hide. And I did hide a couple of times. But one thing I never did is I never gave up. I said, you know what, I would cry for a week, and then I'd be like, okay, fine, you need to shake, get out of it, get up, try again, try again, try again. But the best thing I ever did was to hire somebody who knew something about what I did not know about. I did not know the American market. I thought I was too old. I thought I was a woman. I was a Black woman. And I remember my career coach telling me, Joanne, you're a Black woman in America. Things are different here. You're going to have to do 10 times, maybe 20 times more of what everybody else is doing. And the good thing is, I'm a good student. I've always, as I said, I started by saying I've always been a nerd, right? So I knew, okay, if you tell me to do something, I can do it. I'm going to do it. And so I was the first student at ASU, because my MBA in finance, when I first moved here, I went to get my MBA. I was the first student in my class to get hired as an intern and to get a full-time offer. A girl from Kenya who had been rejected from all sorts of companies in Kenya was the first girl to get not only the internship for the next year, but also the full-time position from one of the biggest companies in the world. That did not happen overnight. It happened with preparation, with tears, with fear, with all the things you can imagine. But one thing I did is I never gave up. All right. So I think I'm going to hand it right back to Betty to lead us to the next part of it. So.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much, John, for that introduction. And moving forward, I think we should move to panel discussion. Um, that is both of you, Dr. Ishiada and Joanne. And I'm going to start with the first question. What advice would you give to those looking to transition into tech roles from non-technical backgrounds? I can repeat my question. What advice would you give to those looking to transition into tech roles from non-technical background? We can start with you, Joanne.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the first thing is, number one, to understand that your skills are absolutely transferable, right? They are. As I've told you, I was in finance and I never thought I would be able to go in and all these companies would be like, yes, you're the right person to get hired, right? But it's really all about, number one, acquiring the necessary education per se, right? Some of the tech companies, for example, if you want to go into cybersecurity, you don't have to go back to school for it. There are just certifications available today in the market, right? But the most important thing that you need to do, other than just getting a certification, is ensuring that your resume is tailor-made and reflects the job, what that job entails. Because I have personally been able to help thousands of ambitious early career professionals to land their dream jobs. And one of the things I help them to do is to ensure that their resume really does reflect those skills that they are looking for. For example, there was a guy called Kevin that I worked with, and he was in the wine industry, and he'd been in the wine industry for 17 years. Wanziku, you're talking. If you can mute yourself. Okay, so one of the things that I was able to help him with very well was to be able to understand that he didn't need to get a degree. What he needed to now be able to do is to convince these hiring managers, first of all, to get his resume right, which he did. That's the basics. That's going to get you the interview. But at the interview stage, as a salesperson from the wine industry, it was important for him to showcase those skills he'd acquired over 17 years were actually very relevant for what that particular role was looking for, because skills are very, very transferable. The only question is, how are you going to tell a story to that hiring manager to convince him that, okay, this is exactly the right thing that we are looking for? So yes, I say gather knowledge, absolutely. But the most important thing you need to understand is, how do I then convince that person or the person on the other side that I'm that badass that they need to solve their problems? So that's really what you need to fix. Fix your resume, make sure it reflects the skills that are in the job description. The job description is absolutely your cheat sheet. So use that. You're being given, literally, this is what I want to hear. So make sure you've custom made your resume, but most importantly, at the interview stage, how are you going to show up? Show up as that person that has solutions for the problems that company is trying to solve. And then you got it. That's it. Okay.
Thank you so much, Joanne. Dr. Ishada?
Yeah, I really appreciate everything Joanne said. Everything Joanne said is spot on. What I would like to do, though, is take us a little bit back and really try and understand, what does it mean when you say transition into a tech role? What does that mean? So I think the first thing all of us have to maybe sort of focus on is, what's the meaning of a tech role, right? And more specifically, do you want a tech role or do you want to work in tech? Those are two different things. I work in tech, Joanne works in tech. Or they call them big tech, right? Microsoft, Google, whatever, right? But then you can have a tech role in an oil company. You can have a tech role in a bank. You can have a tech role in a hospital. So do you want a tech role or do you want to work in a tech company? So hopefully everyone's aligned on, you can have a tech role in a non-tech company. Now let's talk about big tech. I would say maybe 60% of people at Google are technical people and understand various levels of tech. But there's another 40% who have no knowledge of tech. They're in HR, they're in supply chain and logistics, they're in some sort of engineering, electrical, mechanical, chemical, right? None of them, if you ask them what's a processor, would be able to answer that question. So again, you have to ask yourself, do I want a job that aligns with my values and my skill set, but work in a tech company? Or do I have a tech skill set and I'm wanting to apply that tech skill set to any company that calls me? So I want all of you to really think through and be honest with yourselves and be able to answer that question. Now, if we then hone in on tech, Betty and I had this discussion, Professor Otieno and I had this discussion 3-4 days ago. What does it mean to be in tech? People ask me, oh, you work for Google, you must be a really good software engineer. I'm like, I have no clue what software engineering is about. Like literally zero. I did application development at some time. I got bored. I did programming. I just couldn't do it. I'm an infrastructure guy. I'm a network infrastructure guy. So here's some guidance that I want to give all of you who decide that you want to do a tech role, regardless of whether it's a tech company or a non-tech company. So I know this has been recorded. I know, Dr. Uma, you're going to send this out. I know, Betty, you're taking notes, right? There's this model called the OSI model. And this model I've taught in schools for, several years, and I always use it to help people understand where they fit in tech. So is there anyone who's familiar with the OSI model? Raise hand, say something. Okay. In the US, we're taught all people seem to need data processing as a way of remembering it, or all people seem to need Domino's pizza, right? So at the very top, there's the application layer, then presentation, then session, then transport, then network, then data link, then physical. Now, the OSI model is designed specifically to answer this question because the OSI model helps you do a couple of things. One is to determine where is your skill set strongest? Is it in the application layer where you're going to do programming or user experience facing a customer? Or is it at the lower levels at the physical data link and network layer where you're actually going to do physical things, switching, routing, those kind of things? Or is it at the session transport layer where you're going to do cybersecurity, firewalls, etc.? So I think if you study the OSI model, then that gives you a framework to say, oh, I want to be in tech, but I don't want to be that person doing UX or software engineering. I want to be this person who is laying fiber, or this person who's connecting switches, or this person who is setting up routers. Now, once you're able to determine that, then you can do what Joanne said. Seek a certification that allows you to maximize your skill set in that particular domain. A lot of people ask me, what does it take to work at Google? And, frankly, it's interesting because that's a very open-ended question. One of the biggest things that tech companies are known for is to ensure that the person who wants to work at the company is deeply knowledgeable in their domain. So when you come and say you're deeply knowledgeable in tech, I laugh backwards. Ha 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 ha. Then I ask, what do you mean you're knowledgeable in tech? Like, what does that mean? Well, I'm knowledgeable in, routing. Oh, okay, now we're getting somewhere. So do you understand what routing is? CDN? Do you understand all those things? And then you're able to switch your resume and your LinkedIn profile to actually show your expertise in that domain. So I hope somewhere in there I answered it. I think key takeaway here is basic understanding of what is tech versus working in a tech company, a tech job versus working in a tech company. OSI model, please memorize it because that really helps you hone in where your interest is and where your interest and skill set match. And then that allows you to then pursue very focused certifications and really highlight those in your resume to get a job either in tech or in a tech company.
Wow, amazing insights, all from crafting your CV, understanding what is tech, understanding the OSI model. Personally, I keep on forgetting. I know application and session layer. Great insights over there. I think we can move on to the next question. What skills do you believe are the most critical for someone entering the workforce today, and how have they evolved from past generations? We are in the generation of artificial intelligence and machine learning. So briefly, maybe you can give us insights on that. Mak'Ouma?
All right. Okay. I mean, sometimes I look at my dad, and I'll answer this in a weird way. So, and I'm like so jealous because during my dad's time, all they needed to do was to go to school, literally get my dad was in Mak'Ouma, so he was at Mak'Ouma. He already had his job waiting for him, right? They came to schools and they were like, man, we need you. And so it didn't matter how good you were, you just needed that piece of paper and you were golden and you could just go. But unfortunately, we are in an era where that's gone. It's gone, and it's gone forever. It's not coming back, right? So other than getting, it's important to get the basics. You're not going to get into, and as Stephen said, right, either a job in tech or a job in a tech company. Those are two different things, right? And so you need to figure out without having that deep knowledge, meaning not only did you go in and get that degree, your computer science degree, your software engineering degree, or whatever that is, right? But at the same time, you have some sort of, if you're in security, cybersecurity, maybe you've done your CISA, you've done your whatever, that now really solidifies you as somebody who's gone in there, done it, you're an expert. Then maybe you've interned here and there and you've had some hands-on experience, or you've actually coded and done projects that you can showcase. You have this portfolio of stuff that you have. That's all great. But the most important thing that now it boils down to, because everybody else, you will be measured against what everybody else has. And most of these people are very, very, they even have more education than you, probably. So because in this world, people know education is important. So people are getting the education. The thing that I think what you need to be honing on is your brand. Do people know the reason why you're not landing those dream jobs, and the reason why you're not even getting there is because nobody knows you exist. You are the best kept secret in the market. So yes, you're this amazing software engineer, you're this amazing, techie, whatever, finance person, ABCD, but you don't even have a LinkedIn profile. Nobody knows. You're not tooting your own horn and saying, hey, listen, this is the stuff that I do. This is how I help companies solve this and this and this. And that is why you should hire me as that person, because most of these jobs will be gotten from networking, right? So somebody saw you somewhere online and you were talking about something and they networked with you. You saw somebody as well and you went and you created a relationship. And when there was an opportunity, they were able to say, hey, there's an opportunity here, or they referred you saw an opportunity and you remembered, I know Stephen from Google, I can ask him to refer me, right? And all that good stuff. So what it's gonna take is not just education. That's the basics. That's literally the basics. It's gonna be, hey, are you a great networker? What kind of relationships are you creating? Are you nurturing those relationships that are going to yield fruit at some point? Are you building your brand? Are you telling people this is how I help companies solve their problems? Because you're going to have to speak about it at the interview anyway. So you might as well have created this amazing brand so that people, the first thing we do at Microsoft, by the way, because I'm in a hiring panel, I'm a hiring manager as well, is we go into when we get your profile as somebody who's interviewing with us, one of the things we're required to do is to go into your LinkedIn. Now, imagine if your LinkedIn, the last time you were in it was 10 years ago, and it has the photo of you as a baby or whatever you are doing and has nothing that showcases who you are. I'm going to be biased automatically against you. Not that I want to be biased, but I'll see it and be like, this person is obviously not all that. But then your neighbor, your competition, has gone in there on their profile. They've talked about all the amazing projects that they have done. That is your portfolio. That is basically what you're telling the world what your expertise is. So what it's going to take for you to really get that job, no matter the job, it doesn't mean it has to be in big tech. As Stephen said, it could be at a bank, but you're in the IT department. Cybersecurity is needed everywhere. AI is a thing. And yes, AI is here to make, it's going to shake up the world. It's shaking the world. You've seen a lot of people being let go this year. But you know what? AI is only going to be serving the people who are bold enough to understand it, to harness it, and to use it to become masters of it, so that then they're able to sell that mastership to the market. So yes, get AI skills, get those coding skills, get that cybersecurity certificate. With all of that, showcase it to the world and scream from the top of the mountain about how you are the best person in your field. So that by the time I get to you as a hiring manager, I've been seeing you on LinkedIn probably. So I'm already biased in your favor. But if you're hiding in the shadows, I promise you, you will be looking for a job for a really, really long time. And you will be wondering what is wrong. It's not your resume, it's not anything. You've not networked. You've not made sure you're a master at whatever technology is coming, because AI is here today. 10 years from now, we will be talking about something different. Every single thing that comes in the market, jump on it, practice with it, call yourself that master, and showcase to the world why you're good at it. So make sure you're not in the shadows. As I said, do not remain the best kept secret in the market. Be the person that is shouting from the top of the mountains about how you're awesome, because that's where job security is going to come from. That is what this new era requires for you to be amazing. Stephen wouldn't be here if he was not on LinkedIn and all that. He wouldn't be talking, even with his doctorate and being, a really amazing, awesome person, if he wasn't talking to the world and showcasing his skills. I bet, and maybe he can say maybe something else, I don't know, but I bet he wouldn't have had this success if he was hiding in the shadows. So I'm gonna leave that there.
Thank you so much, Joan, for those great insights. I think we can hear from Dr. Ichi.
Meanwhile, Betty, just a minute. Questions. Anyone who has a question? We are going to have Q&A sessions. Please share your question in the chat. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so Joanne has said, she said it all, right? I think what I'll add is this, or what I'll re-emphasize is this. Formal education is important. So there is a huge temptation to peel away from formal education and pursue certifications and so on and so forth. But the reality is, you with formal education versus you without formal education, there is a significant difference. And please don't compare yourself with the Mark Zuckerbergs and the Larry and Sergey and the Bill Gates, because those people had humongous advantages over all of us, including the education, including money that they were able to secure. So please, at the end of the day, compare yourself, you with education, you without education, formal education. So let's say formal education 1. Number 2 is, as Joanne said, is to be very curious about what are the contemporary skills that are needed today. The ones I needed 20 years ago when I was doing Microsoft Certified System Engineer are different from today's need for GCP, right? Today, cloud computing is big. Back then, no one even figured that that was a thing. So you have to be able to, and what I did is I used to read articles. And by the way, those were the times when you had to pay for subscriptions to be sent to you. So you would spend time reading. You have the advantage of the internet. You have the advantage of KUSAT. You have the advantage of like getting that information really quick. So find out what are the skills that are necessary today. And I'm talking specifically in tech. And today I can tell you any computing certification from Microsoft, from Amazon, from Google is something that's required, whereas in the past, it wasn't necessarily required. So that's the second stream. Then the third stream, really aligned with what Joanne said, how do you market yourself? Now, it's important to lend credibility to the voice that you're marketing. Because like Joanne, I interview people. I've probably interviewed close to 1,000 people between Google and Verizon, right? So I do know what things we're looking for. And sometimes some people come in and they're really good at marketing, but there's fluff behind the marketing. So you have to lend a credible voice. So that means as you are working, as you're doing these certifications, as you're doing this formal education, as you're doing these side hustles, you want to become such an expert that when someone asks you about that skill set, you're able to market your voice with credibility. And then the last thing I'll say is connections. Joanne said it perfectly. You may be the best student. What did you say, Joanne? You came from the Alliance, right? The school, right? You may be the best student, but if no one knows it, then that doesn't help you. Every job I've gotten through referrals. And do you know who the biggest referral is right now? Is LinkedIn. So make sure your LinkedIn profile is spot on. Make sure you engage with people like me, Joanne, Dr. Uma, Betty, because these are people who can advocate on your behalf and say, hey, I know this person. Can you connect them? And then that opens doors for you. So I think I'll leave it at that because Joanne really nailed a lot of the stuff that I would have said. Thank you.
Great insights there, Dr. Ichi. I think it's like you knew the next question I was about to ask. How can networking and mentorship contribute to career growth? We always hear you need to network, you need to go to tech event, and meet great people and exchange cards here and there. So how can it contribute to growth, career growth? And what are some of the effective ways to build those relationships?
Yeah, let me start with that one because I think we have to be careful about what we mean when we say mentor. What are you actually seeking? What are you looking for? So I'll start by, my friend Joyce Wright, when we did the KUSAT thing a few months ago, really nailed it. She said, are you looking for a friend, a mentor, or a sponsor? Right? So you have to be very, I can be a friend of any of you, right? You come, you just tell me I'm stressed and we talk about it, blah, blah, blah. Mentorship is someone who guides you. So if you're looking for guidance, you have to be also very selective with what mentor you're looking for. Someone may look at me and say, oh, I want to be Dr. H's mentee, but actually you need Joanne because Joanne has openings, has a point of view that's completely different than I am. So I beg you to also be selective with your mentors. And then lastly is a sponsor. A sponsor is someone who's willing to speak on your behalf behind closed doors. That's someone whose goal is to accelerate your career. And typically that's someone who's already in the organization that you're in or the company that you're in. So when we talk about mentorship contributing to career growth, I think it's the notion that a mentor may be able to guide you, given the goals that you already have, and tell you based on their experience, based on their knowledge, how to navigate to achieve that goal. But the work is still on you. And then the last thing I'll say, and KUSAT, this is a personal challenge I'm throwing to KUSAT, personal challenge I'm throwing to Professor Otiende, USIU. We need to create a formalized mentorship program because Joanne, I'm sure you can speak to this. You probably receive 1,000 people saying they want you to be their mentor. There's just not enough hours in the day to dedicate to mentorship. But if we create a structure, and there's a really good structure I'll share with you, Dr. Mak'Ouma later, called GMI, the Global Mentorship Initiative. I think once we as diasporans can put ourselves out there, let's say we have 50 of us who say we can take in 3 mentees in 3 months, right? The mentorship cycle has to end. It has to have a beginning and an end. It can't go on forever. Friendship, perhaps, but mentorship has to have a beginning and an end. And so if we're able to put a formalized structure, then mentees can select the people to whom they can relate to the most. Mentors can select people to whom they relate to the most. And the two of them can make a really good connection. And then I'll wrap up by saying this: networking is important. There's really no formula. I think what I found with networking is you just try and get to as many places as you can get, and someone someone will notice you. Someone will say, hey, there's something about Joanne, the way she talked, the way she said this. I want to get to know this person. And that creates an opening for you. So I'll wrap it at that.
Thank you. I think, John, you can proceed.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's nailed it. And I'm not gonna add on all that because he's just nailed it. The reason why I have thrived in most of the places I have been is because of sponsors, right? I found people that we connected so deeply and they were already in the organization and they were already up ahead and they were like, that's the person, So when they're in those rooms that I am not in, they're able, they're the leadership team, they're with the VP or the president of the company, they're able to say, hey, you know what? Joanne is awesome. Like the next ABCD, those are the sponsors. So, and those relationships you get them when you're already probably in an organization. But let's go back to networking. I really wanted to touch on networking. So networking can be formal or it can be informal. So it can be, hey, you know what? We met at a mixer, we met at a conference, or we met somewhere and we exchanged numbers. And then I got back in touch with you later and I started that relationship and we became friends, sort of like, and we kind of just rotate around each other. It can also be that you are on LinkedIn and you're cold reaching out to somebody who is you've never met, you were never at a conference anywhere, but this is somebody who works at Google, this is somebody who works at Microsoft, and you really want to work there at some point. So there are things you can do to reach out to them, but the biggest mistake I see people doing today is that they reach out and they start saying, I want you to mentor me. That first of all just comes, as Stephen has said, we don't have enough time to do all of that. Instead, what you need to be doing, my tips on how you can go about mentoring in such a way that, yes, it's to a stranger, but it doesn't come off as you're demanding for something that they don't owe you in the first place. They don't know you from Adam. They don't need to do anything for you, right? And you don't have to be, and don't be upset when they don't reply as well. That actually is bad behavior because nobody owes you anything. Is to make sure, number one, you go connect with them. First of all, just go on LinkedIn for connect with them, see what they're all about. If they're posting about stuff, start commenting on their posts, making sure you're supporting them. So you have to give before you receive something. That is what we forget. We always want to receive first before we give. It should be the opposite. The best way I have found that works for me when I want to nurture a relationship is always to give first. I will be the person saying, hey, I saw you posted. I'll reach out to them and say, hey, I was on your page. I saw you posted about such and such a thing. That was really, really awesome. I learned so much. Thank you for sharing. And I leave it at that. I am not asking for anything. I'm not trying to get a favor. I'm not even asking them for anything. And then they will come back and be like, oh my gosh, because it's natural. They'll be like, oh my God, that was so, thank you. And with that, you start nurturing a relationship. It's exactly the same thing when you find a new neighbor. You go to your neighbor and start saying, hey, give me your food, give me this. No, you go and you give them up. When they move in, you give them something first. Or you go and say, oh my God, can I help you first? And then that relationship becomes nurtured. And then with time, when an opportunity arises, you can say, hey, can I book a coffee chat with you? I really would like to know how it is to work at so and so. And no pressure, it will be only 15, maybe 20 minutes at your convenience. And let you know if it's possible. If it's not possible, keep it moving, find another mentor. But the thing is this, you nurture those relationships and then they will yield fruit, and that takes time. So what most people don't want to do is that nurturing part of it. They want the result. So they just want immediately to come and say, Dr. Ichi, I want you to mentor me. And you're like, I don't know you from Adam. Like, I don't know you at all. So learn the art of reciprocity. First give, nurture, and then it will yield fruit naturally. Now, the mentorship part that Stephen touched on is absolutely important. The formal mentorship is the only way we are all going to be able to help each other. There is just not as many hours we are so busy. I can only imagine. All of you are busy. So imagine if you have your normal job, all these other things that you have to do for your family and all these, and then you have to mentor 50 people, you'll be dead. So if we if we can formalize that and find a way of making it so much simpler, that would be so great, because there's so many amazing people willing to give their time. There's just no way of doing it in a systemized way. So
thank you so much, Joanne and Dr. Ichi. I think most of the questions I was going to ask, I'll kind of skip some because you've already covered. I would like to ask a question. What has been one of the most significant career challenges you've each faced, and how did you overcome it? Did you ever felt like having like an imposter syndrome? Did you ever felt like quitting a job? Was it like too stressful? Please just give us insights on how probably where you felt like things are not going on well and you felt like you want to quit. Start off
Sorry.
with Joanne or Dr. Ichi.
Yes. Thank you. I was having the technical difficulty of unmuting myself. That's a really good question. I think when I think about significant career challenges, I would argue that most of them have been more about me and how I need to respond to things versus the technical issue itself. So I always start by saying these different types of challenges that you face in life. There's the technical challenges that are answered by math, right? And by learning. Then there's the behavioral / adaptive / cultural challenges that you need to figure within yourself how to overcome them. And so when I think about the significant career challenges I've had, most of them have been because of how I approached an issue or how I felt about myself within that issue. So let me expand a little bit. So I think as Kenyans, we have, and by the way, don't crucify me here, but I think we're in a safe space, so I can say this. I think Kenyans, we think we know everything, right? We know everything. So when a manager comes and says, hey, you could improve in ABC, you're like, Allah, what do you mean I could improve in ABC? Like you're taken aback. That is such a big thing. It's such a big cultural thing. When you think me, I don't know these things, right? That's the thing that shakes in your head. So I think one of my biggest challenges has to be to try and humble myself to the fact that I don't know everything. And I need to be open to feedback. Adam Grant talks about this thing where he talks about relational conflict versus sort of like technical conflict, right? And technical conflict is where someone says, you did something wrong, correct it. But relational conflict is when you think someone is, like saying something against you. So I think that's the biggest challenge in my career that I've had to overcome, is to be open to feedback and to see that that feedback is actually about my growth, not about my personality or that I'm a bad guy or that I'm useless, right? So I would say that's one. The second one that I want to state it, I haven't necessarily struggled a lot with it because I understand it, is imposter syndrome. I understand imposter syndrome very well, and I know what it means and what it doesn't mean. And so even when I'm put in a situation where I feel like I'm the person who knows the least, and I'm wondering, if these guys discover I don't even know what ML stands for, what are they going to say, right? I know how to overcome those things. And I'll say this, for each and every one of you, I would like you to view challenges in two ways. One is, again, the technical, which can be solved by math, and then the behavioral, which is very, very about you and how you respond to things in the world. And so for me, I overcome technical challenges by reading and learning the technical stuff. Easy. Right now, I'm in the cutting edge of delivering machine learning capacity. That's like the most technical you can get. This GPUs, TPUs, these processors that are, like so many of them that are able to do these marvelous things in machine racks. And like there's just such technical depth that's really exciting. But then when I come home, I have to reflect and say, wow, how can I better myself? So, someone asked me at the university a few days ago. So I decided I'm going to put all this stack of books here, right? So this is my message to you. You need to learn technical versus adaptive. And in the adaptive, you need to be able to sense what is going on in the world and also sense how do you respond to things in the world. So I think someone asked me, Dr. Ichi, what's your favorite book? And I said, one of my favorite books of all time, Outliers, because that helped me understand the system and it helped me understand myself. One of my other second favorite books, Streetlights and Shadows by Klein, helps you understand the system, helps you understand yourself. The Hidden Brain, no better book, Hidden Brain, and I follow the Hidden Brain podcast religiously, helps you understand the system and helps you understand behind closed doors, your mind, everything that you've gone through, all the experiences that you go through allow you to feel a certain way and you have to understand yourself and face them. Best technical book about leadership, Leadership Without Easy Answers. Heifetz talks about adaptive leadership. Blink, one of my favorite books of all time, Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. And then I will end with Execution. At the end of the day, and Joanne, I'd love to hear your point of view over here. When I came to the US, they said that the words that they used is, it's your job. And I'm like, it's not that serious. I mean, come on, I can submit things late. I can come to work late. It's your job. I'm like, wow. So it took me several years to overcome the cultural element of, I should take things easy. It's not that big deal, but it's your job. Man, that took me. I came with that Kenyan culture of, see, the plane will wait for me. Or see, someone will do it. Or, someone will see my work and suddenly I'll be.
Ichi, please, your point is so exciting. I think people are laughing over here. Please continue. Betty?
I think Kishi is kind of, I don't know why it's frozen.
Yeah, but
I'm not sure if
maybe
it's on my
maybe
side.
maybe Joanne can proceed. Then we'll
Sure.
go to-
Man, what is the biggest challenge? I think in my 20s, maybe let me put it this way. In my 20s, it was obviously just starting to understand that the reason why I wasn't getting to where I was the lack of knowledge, right? I thought, my degree and all that technical knowledge was what I needed. And then I realized that's not what I needed. I needed way more than that. So that was, of course, an impediment in my career. But now let's switch off to the transition to the US, right? And obviously, the culture shock will get you because here, one of the things is everything is super precise. Where I work, for example, and where I've always worked, everything is planned to the second. What time are you going to be there? I remember traveling with one of the VPs of our company, and he literally would plan up to the exact minute. I will be at the lobby at 5:05. We have our cab coming at 5:06. We are like, that's how precise the things are over here. And we as Kenyans obviously want to go with the flow, right? So one thing that I've learned about is time management that has, made me extremely also very I have a calendar that's very very to the T. I will always be like, I'll be there at this time, I will do this at this time. And that has helped me because I have a crazy calendar. But the biggest challenge I ever faced was racism for me, because it personally did affect me. So, and I'll give you a story. So I moved from ExxonMobil, which was fabulous, by the way, if I do so say myself. And I moved to Amazon, and I thought the culture would be the same, right? There would be people with integrity, A, B, C, D. No. And I'm not going to sit here and say that Amazon is a bad company. It's not. I just happened to end up being the the recipient of a boss that was racist. So the thing is, I thought I almost gaslighted myself into thinking I was imagining it, right? Because I was like, why is this person speaking to me as if I'm stupid? And I'll give you an example. Like, she would come in to give me a project, and then she would say, are you understanding what I am saying? It doesn't feel like you're understanding me. It was extremely condescending every single time. And yeah, at first I was like, I need to be more understanding. I need to get that feedback. I really, until I had a conversation with a mentor, and this is where mentors come in handy. There was another Black guy in the same department, and I said, this is happening. I booked, a meeting with him, and I said, this is happening, but I feel, am I overreacting? Because I wanted to understand his point of view. And he said, absolutely not. This is happening. You're not imagining it. And please, don't sit there and wait for a whole year before you decide to do something. Now, one thing I learned from that situation is I'm not going to change a human being. I'm not even going to take them to HR, because that's not going to solve the problem. As Dr. Ichi said, you have to figure out yourself, what actions are you going to take? Because at the end of the day, the problem starts with you, and the solution will have to come from you. It's very difficult to change an entire organization. So what I did to handle that situation is I said, listen, this is Joanne you're talking to. You did not bring me here. I went internally. I read all the policies. I wanted to know, does the company say that I cannot move from this department to a different department, no matter how long I've been in the company? Actually, I realized there was a whole policy that said even if I was there for one day, and I was not happy with the position that I was in, if I could find another department that could hire me, I could move, even if it was only after 24 hours. And so guess what I did? Me being me and being the firestorm that I am, I went in, applied to 10 different departments. And I started interviewing. And I made sure, because I knew there was going to be backlash, I went and I had a meeting with the VP of my company, the department. And I said, this is what is happening. This is why I feel like there's a lot of stuff that's going on with this particular manager, and I cannot stay here. So I am using this policy that you said I can go ahead and look and find something. And he was so understanding. He was the opposite of that lady. And he was like, I cannot imagine how you're feeling. And he made sure to cover me, because eventually when it came out, because the moment you hit send to all these applications, your direct manager will know that you are looking for another job, because they're the first people to be told. The system is set up in such a way that they automatically receive an alert saying so. So by the time she was coming to call me in a meeting and say, you still work for Amazon and ABCD, I simply told her, I've already spoken to the VP. He asked me to let you know, if you have a problem with it, take it up with him. And so it's wisdom that helped me to navigate this situation, right? Had I just gone on and not reported it to somebody and not had a way out, I would probably have lost my job. She would have made my life a living hell, and it would have been so terrible. But guess what, guys? After I had only been in that position for about 2 months, and I got 5 offers from 5 different departments, and I moved. And the rest of my stay at Amazon was amazing, because the department I went into was so different. So your boss can either make your life hell or make it better. But the question is, you're not gonna, instead of spending your energy and your time trying to change that person, trying to change that system, you need to figure out, what do I do in this case to get the best outcome for me? You cannot change an entire institution. You're not going to. But what you can do is change yourself and your strategy and your approach. So when you find yourself dissatisfied with your job or dissatisfied with something that is happening, you need to dig deep and say, okay, since I'm not going to change this entire company, then I need to be having an exit strategy to figure out where my next role is going to be, in which place, and get there. Stop crying about it. Stop telling your relatives about it. Take action. That's all I can tell you. Yeah.
Amazing, great insights. Dr. Ishad, I think you're breaking. Would you like to finish up before you go to the next question?
No, we can go to the next question. I mean, do we still have more time?
Not really. In fact, I'm trying to rush through so that we can finish up. So moving on to the next question. How can someone showcase their future-ready skills effectively on a resume or a job interview? You know, some of us are like, we are so scared. We might be like, are we bragging during the interview? So you want to be like, I'm not trying to show everything. Let me show what is really important. What's your advice on that?
Yeah, so I think this is Joanne's domain. She knows how to maximize your presence. I will say this. It is important to acknowledge that our culture stops us from bragging about ourselves. But I think that is something that we have to be very culturally sensitive about. So if that's the culture in Kenya, then let's keep it that way. I can talk about the US. I've been in both, I've worked in both. In the United States, advocating for yourself is a skill and is something that your managers are looking for. Listen, I've been a manager for several years, and the way we do performance management at Google is very peer-based. That means I say something about myself, then a peer says, oh, yeah, that is true. That person did that. So remember what Joanne said at the very beginning. And I'll rephrase it because I can't say it as well as she did, right? Part of it is how you perform, but more than that is how you tell the story. So the story of how you perform has to show outcomes. I landed this. And it's very difficult for Kenyans to say that. Ati, I did, we want to say, yeah, we did this, several of us did this. You have to say, I landed this. And because of that, this is the outcome that it had for the company. And then you can go into, yeah, and I was with Jimmy and Vivian and Rhoda and Grace and Jackie and we did, right? That underlying story, that shouldn't be at the top. But yeah, there was this thing, and then we came together, and then I did this little thing. No, 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 no. You have to overcome it by saying, this is what I landed. And I'll give you, Betty, I'll put a little guide that I can share with everyone, but it has to stand with landing. Now, I'm not saying landing with fluff. I'm saying landing with actual credibility, which means you have to work hard and you have to work on the right things and then showcase how those right things were outcomes that were relevant to the company that you work for. So I'll leave it at that because I know, Joanne, this is what she does. She knows this stuff. So, right, Joanne, like we're just like, yeah, and yeah, I just kind of did that, right?
I couldn't, I was laughing the whole time because that you nailed it. Like that is right. The Kenyan culture is, I think that was my biggest challenge, actually transitioning, right? Having the courage to say, and take that ownership and say, I did it. I led this. I. Because I felt like I am the worst. Like internally, I was like, man, I should be giving people credit, right? I feel like I'm just not. I need to tell them the way there was an entire team that was actually there. But we forget that there's a way that you can give credit internally, right? Whenever I'm internally in my company and we're working on a project, I don't say I say we, right? I say, hey, and I give credit. I say, hey, Dr. Ichi was, a very, very important part of this project. They did this. I give credit where it's due. That's very different from when I'm going to advocate for a promotion for myself. Those are two different conversations. So you have to know how to context switch and understand when I'm at a bigger podium, I'm going to give credit, obviously. But when I'm advocating for myself, I'm going to say, I was the one who led it. I'm the one who did it. I'm the one who brought it all together. Without me, everything would have crumbled, right? So absolutely. But the most culture-wise, this is what I'm going to tell you in 2024, okay? In Kenya, everybody says be humble. Even in church, we are told be humble, right? Be humble, be demure. And there's nothing wrong with being humble. You can be a leader and be humble. But at the end of the day, as I started by saying, if you're not able to tell the world the way and scream it at the top and tell them the way you're the best of the best, there's just no way that you're going to ever command that respect and the money and whatever it is that you need and that promotion from the world, because they don't believe, because you haven't convinced them, they don't believe that you're worth that. They don't. So whenever you're going to go into an interview or wherever you are, you absolutely have to say you're a badass. I always start by saying I'm all that and a cup of sugar. Is it fluff? No, because I know I back it up with actions. I can tell you, this is the project I handled. It was $1 billion project. This is exactly what I did. This is exactly the challenge that was there. The actions that I took, the results were this. And this is what I learned. I'm not saying that I'm perfect, but I did learn something from ABCD, right? And that's why I can come into your company and help you with ABCD. You see, I'm tying it up with my previous experience, but I'm also showing you that I intimately am aware of the challenges that you're facing. And this is why I'm the right person to come fill in this position. Storytelling is key. If you ever go into an American company's interview and you're just like, oh, my name is Mary, and so we were doing this and that, you're out. That is it. You are done. I don't care. And I always coach my people. I tell them, listen, I don't care whether there was 1 million of you on that entire project. When you're telling your story, you're going to say, I led a team of 1,000. I did this. I brought this, because they're hiring you. They're not hiring their 1,000 people behind you. Don't ever forget that, right? I never even say like, I'm the leader. They're looking for leadership skills. They're not looking for somebody they're going to have to come and overtrain. Companies are lazy. They don't want to train people. They want people already who've been trained. They're going to come in and take off and just be fearless leaders, right? So that's why it's super important for you. Shade off that demureness. If let's just say I come back to Kenya today and I was looking for a job, I'm definitely going to come in as a CEO, and I'm declaring it here, nothing less, because I'm operating at a level whereby my projects bring in 5 billion. So if I am handling 5 billion, then of course I'm a CEO material, right? Now, if I'm coming to interview as a CEO and I start by saying, oh, I'm Joanne Marime, and so we were doing this and would you hire me? There is no way. But if I came in and I said, listen, I help companies such as SAP, Amazon, Microsoft, ABCD. This is what I've been able to do. This is my portfolio. This is the revenue I bring in a year. This is what I can do for your company. I understand your company is doing ABCD, and I'm your person. I'm your woman. I'm your leader. You're absolutely going to hire me. You're going to say, yes, yes, yes. So the thing is this. The culture of being demure is not going to help you. You have to shed it aside and say, listen, yes, when I'm home, I'm a wife, I'm a whatever, mother, whatever that is. You're a husband, you're this, you're that, right? But when you're out in the public, you are the biggest badass that has ever been seen ever. And when you go in there, things just work out simply because you're there. So if you can go to my profile, you'll see I don't shy around saying I'm all that and a cup of sugar. I say it because, listen, imposter syndrome was killing me. You talk about imposter syndrome, Dr. Ichi, and it used to be like, how can I say, oh my God, my very first interview, I remember going to a conference and seeing people with their labels from Yale, Harvard, and mine was Arizona State University, yeah? And imposter syndrome hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like, yo, God. And I cried for 30 minutes in the bathroom because I was so scared, guys. I was scared. Imposter syndrome hit me. But then I finally realized, first of all, the worst that can happen is people will say no to me, and that is okay. I won't die. And I wiped those tears, went back into the National Black MBA conference, rocked every single interview I got, and I came out with 5 offers, and that's how I ended up at ExxonMobil. Okay? All I had to do was to remind myself, it doesn't matter the label. What matters is I know that I can speak for myself. I can advocate for myself. I can speak and say, these are my stories, and this is why I can solve your problems for you. And I rocked it. So I say that to say that, yes, are you always going to have that feeling of, I need to be demure? Absolutely. But the world doesn't care. Get with the times. The world will hire you. Why is Elon Musk the biggest billionaire right now? He's an asshole, I agree. But he is super confident. He says, I'm going to do it. I am the ish and I'm going to solve it, period. And everybody listens because he is so confident. So guys, I'm going to say this. If you want to command and go into that job that you really, really want, no matter the industry, shade that I want to be private. I want to be, no, I don't want anybody to say that I'm this. Are they paying your bills? These people you think are talking about you? They're not. So forget them. You go out there, tell the world you're the best of the best, and I promise you everything else will come following. And by the way, the other thing I wanted to leave you with is I was so scared when I first got into, my coaching and everything. And I was like, man, if my boss sees that I'm talking about all this other stuff and yet I am in tech, right? They're going to fire me. No, if anything, my boss thinks I'm the ish. He's like, I cannot understand how you do all these things. I follow you. I love the stuff that you put out there. And it has cemented me in his mind as the best of the best. So it all works together. So build your brand, be bold, say that you're that person, get those skills, show up. Sometimes when you don't know, just show up. Sometimes that's all you can do. Show up at work and everyday things will come together. And I'm dropping the mic right there. That's it.
Amazing insights. Lastly, from a panel discussion, what is one piece of advice you wish you could go back and give to your younger self at the start of your career? You could have been so naive, you do not know how to approach probably your boss and tell them, you know what, this is not right. How did you go about it? I mean, how was the whole experience starting over?
Wow. Okay. Sorry, Betty. I know you said we're wrapping up, but I need the mic for like 3 minutes, okay? Because I think this is a very important
Go
part
on.
of it. Right. So I want to give, through illustrations, my career, what I would tell my younger self, and then actually more than that, what I would appreciate about what I did as my younger self, right? So when I finished high school, like immediately when the results came out, I walked across from Strathmore High School to Strathmore College, and I went to someone who I had seen a few times and said, I want a job. I don't know what occurred. I think as I think back, it's because I'd seen guys with suits and I was like, I want to dress in a suit and tie. So maybe that was the motivator, but I just said, I want a job, right? And then, went to campus, whatever, we were kicked out. And then I said, I'm going to walk into Computer City and say, I want a job. And they gave me a job. Kenya Breweries, I want a job. They gave me a job. Like, it's weird, right? I came Stato, I went to Carl's Jr., I want a job. They gave me a job. Like, it's crazy that sometimes you think it's really complex, but you have to ask, I want a job. So I would say that always be sort of brave and be bold in just going and doing it. You literally have nothing to lose by stating what it is that you want. Second, throughout my entire career, and I'm talking, some of us are kind of old, I'm talking like over 30 years, right? I've noticed that every significant change in my career has been because someone noticed something I was doing behaviorally. And because of that, they gave me more projects. They promoted me. I remember working at Verizon. I used to work out with this guy who was a director. And then suddenly, when he took a package to leave the company, he said, I want you to be a manager. I was like, whoa, like we've never talked about it. All we do is engage in conversations. Now you want me to be a manager? When I was in Excel, I used to do networking. Then a manager approached me and said, hey, I want you to take care of our telephone system. I'm like, I don't even know what that is. Like, I don't know technically how to do it. He said, you'll be able to do it. A year later, oh, we want you to be in charge of our firewalls and cybersecurity. I'm like, whoa. So, and I'll leave you also with Verizon. I managed this team of 30 users or 30 employees. And then we merged with a company called MCI. And I thought I would get more people, but then they came and said, you need to close, network monitoring center, your network operations center. You need to close it in 4 weeks. 4 weeks, meaning lay people off, move services from one location to another. I had a choice at that moment in time. I could have said, you know what, as a matter of principle, no, I wouldn't do it. But what I said was, give me 6 weeks, give me coaches, give me career people who can help my people get another job. And by seeing that, they're like, okay, this person is willing to do, but is also loves his people so much that he wants to ensure that even if they leave, they will find a place. And I got all these vendors to help people with career growth. So when I transitioned the thing in 6 weeks, then my title changed from being a manager to a project manager because they figured, oh, this guy can do projects. So what am I saying here? What I'm saying is there's a temptation to say things like you could have changed some things in your past. But as I said to several students this weekend, I said, when you're at a crossroads and you either have to go left or right, whatever path you choose is the right one, because you'll never know what would have happened on this other side. So everyone is watching you at every moment in time, and everyone will be willing to give you a shot, because some of the things that you don't know about yourself, others see in you. So every day you go to work, every day you're in school, sit in the front, raise your hand, ask questions. Every time you're at work, you're on a call, even if you know the answer, go off mute and ask a question. Because people start noticing, hey, this guy, he's curious. And then when a role comes up, even though you may not be technically qualified for it, they know that you can adapt and be in that role. Then I'll finish with this. I think I like sharing this thing. And Joanne, you're going to coach me into how I can be using this thing, right? So I came up with a framework that always helps me understand myself. Remember what we talked about. You have to diagnose yourself and the system, understand yourself and the system, and then figure out how to approach yourself and the system. But I call it the fumble framework. So fumble is when you're playing a sport, you receive the ball, then you drop it and you mess it up and you think life is over and nothing's gonna be good. But fumble is fundamental because the only way you progress is by fumbling. Fumbling means you made a mistake, okay? So the F in fumble stands for face fear. Now, I'm not a fan of people who say, don't be afraid, because fear is survival. Fear was put in us so that we can survive. So you need to face the fear, whether it's facing the fear of new career, whether it's facing whatever fear it is that you're trying to face, you have to face it. The second, the U, is you have to get unstuck. Joanne and I talked about this. Not all paths are straight. Sometimes you have to meander to get to your destination. So don't get stuck hitting your head on the wall saying, this is the only way I can get through, chesty, I don't know, whatever, right? Find a way around it, right? Get unstuck. The M in fumble is the biggest, is mindset. You have to engage a growth mindset. This fixed mindset of, oh, this is how I am, I can only be like this, I can only do this, that puts you in a place where you cannot progress. You have to have a growth mindset. And there's so many tools underneath the growth mindset. The B is, and Joanne and I never talked, like we never rehearsed this, but the biggest career moves that I've made have been because I've been bold. You have to be bold. You have to raise your hand. You have to ask. You have to be bold. So be bold. L is leadership. And that means self-leadership, what's your leadership style, and leadership amongst others. You have to, listen everyone, you have to study leadership. And you have to figure out what kind of leader are you. You're an empathetic leader, you're a transactional leader, are you a controlling leader, whatever it is, and maximize it. And then the last one, you have to execute. You can talk all you want. You can say, I'm the best thing since sliced bread. But if you don't know how to execute, did you hear what Joanne said? She declared, if I go to Kenya, I will be CEO. And they'll ask me, what do you mean you'll be CEO? And you'll say, look, just look, and then come back after you've looked. She has the power of execution. A lot of us get stuck talking and talking and talking, but not executing. So, fumble. Joanne, over to you.
I mean, what do I say after that? There's like nothing to say. But seriously, I echo everything you said. You nailed it. What I would say to my younger self is, number one, hang in there, because I think there were so many times when I was just like, I honestly don't see whether there's a path ahead, right? So hang in there. The other thing that I wish I would have done differently is I would not have been so rigid, as you said. I was just so focused narrowly on this is how I want it to be. I thought I would get out of school. I thought everything would happen this way, my way. I wish I'd just spent that time gathering as much knowledge as I possibly can outside of just the formal knowledge that I had at the time. So what do I do differently today that has made me so I know my future is bright without a doubt, is I invest in not just formal, like, hey, certifications. I invest in coaches. I have a health coach. I have a business coach. I have a real estate coach. I have a faith, like I have coaches everywhere that I pay. It's not for free, remember? Because one thing I found out is not, you can pay a little money now and that knowledge is going to make you $5 million. And you probably pay just a very little amount for it, right? And because the first coach that I hired helped me so much, I realized, my God, the power of information and the power of figuring out that person that knows something that you don't know. And either buying their books, getting their knowledge because they've downloaded it somewhere. They probably have it on YouTube if you want more of the freebies. But if you really want to accelerate your career, your future, talk to them, figure out, get a mentorship relationship or pay them, because most of them you can pay them for their time and they can download in a month stuff that would have taken you 10 years to learn. So what do I wish I'd done more? I wish I would have, the money that I spent going party after party, I would have spent it on coaches, on mentors, and on more books about leadership, about finance, about real estate, about all this. Because let me tell you what I do today. I wake up at 3 a.m. and I know people think that is ridiculous, but for me, it works. I wake up at 3 because my life is so busy that if I don't, I won't have time to read outside of just the normal stuff that I do. I dedicate an hour every day just to read a book on something. So there's no formula that you have to read this and that. I just want to gather as much knowledge as I possibly can, because knowledge is the only thing that's, your brain is your job security. Your brain, your knowledge, whatever you're putting in it is your money. If you understand that, then you will make sure that your brain is not just about watching TV. And there's nothing wrong. I love binge watching TV. I just don't do it before I read a book, before I listen to a podcast, before I listen to a leadership something, before I talk to God. God is a big thing to me. So I spend, by the time everybody else is getting out of bed, I've had 5 hours of working already. I've exercised. I have meditated with God. I've spent time with God. I have done, so that just having a solid morning routine has revolutionized my life. That's the other thing I wish I knew before. Have a solid morning routine and everything else will just work, because my first meetings with my clients in Germany start at 6 a.m. But I'm always ready with makeup and everything happy and looking good. And that's why I'm at the top of my field. It's hard work. So I'm just also going to tell you something. Let nobody lie to you. If you think you're going to be lazy and make it to the top, you're very, very mistaken. It's going to get you to literally, it's going to take blood, sweat, and tears. Dr. Ichi, Dr. Matt, become doctors because they were sitting down and hoping somebody handed them something. I am sure they wake up ridiculously early or sleep ridiculously late, depending on how their schedules are. But because they know that when you sow, whatever you sow, you shall reap. So at the end of the day, hard work beats talent every time. If you're a hard worker and you're not so smart, you're probably going to go so much farther ahead than the person who's the smartest person in the room. But imagine if you're smart and a hard worker, you're absolutely unstoppable. So get that knowledge. Stop saying, oh, paying Dr. Ichi $2,000 is a lot of money. Yet you're going to the bar and spending $5,000 every other day, party after party. And that $5,000 has never yielded anything for you. So figure out, buy books, people. YouTube University is free knowledge. Instead of calling your friend, how do I fix a tire? Go to YouTube and get that thing and figure out how to fix a tire. Okay? And I'm just going to drop it there. Get that knowledge. That's it.
Thank you so much, Joanne and Dr. Ichi, for being an amazing panelist. I'd like to hand over to Mark for Q&A, and then we're going to close from there.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was powerful. Yeah, so because I'd asked Aisha to take care of that. Aisha, are you able to maybe look at the questions that have been asked?
Yeah, so first and foremost, thank you very much, Ichi and Joanne. I think I was just laughing all through because, what you're saying is very authentic, very real. I want to believe that all of us on the call have been through those kind of situations at one point. Some people may still be going through those phases. So thank you for sharing your knowledge, your skills with us. We really appreciate. So for Dr. Ichi, we've requested for a guide that can help people learn how to, pitch outcomes without the fluff. So if you can share that with the team whenever you have time, that would be useful. Let me see what other questions are here. The list of books, we already shared that on the chat. You can copy and paste it, save that, or you can watch the recording afterwards. Yeah, so for Joanne, there's a question: what is required to swiftly transition into the US labor market without any hurdles? We have people in the chat who have PhDs, masters from their home country and are wondering, what's the best way to get started?
Well, that's easy yet very hard, right? It's when you get the right strategy, it's extremely easy. When you are fumbling in the dark and trying to figure it out yourself, it can be extremely hard. So this is the thing. Number one, if you're already in the US, right? And I know everybody comes to the US and says, oh my God, we want to do nursing and all that. And hats off to all the nurses. I love them. But nursing is not the only thing you can do in the US. There's so many other things you can do. This is literally the land of dreams. You can be anything you want to be. But for you to be there and to transition into the work world, number one, the very basics, your resume. I cannot begin to tell you, even relatives that I've tried to help and fix their resume and just tell them like, okay, I'm just going to do the resume for you then, right? Because you really don't want to, but I'm going to do it for you, right? And I'm going to use the same skills because you don't have to throw away your degree because you've arrived here. Your degree is actually very relevant. Remember, my computer science degree is from Kenya, not from here, but I was hired here. So whatever you've done matters. The only thing that's now standing between you and your job is your resume. Get a resume done by a professional. Sit with them, understand how it is to make it so that once they've shown you the way, because you will have to do them, many of them in the length of your career. So stop outsourcing and refusing to be coached on how to do this stuff. Understand what it takes. So they will do, like when you come to my class, I will help you. Yes, I will give you the really good one, but I will teach you so that you never have to go somewhere else and ask somebody else, what do I do, right? And then the other thing, Stop being afraid of interviews. People are deathly afraid of, because in Kenya, it's all about I knew somebody who connected me and then I didn't go through an interview and I got a job, right? Am I right? But out here, nobody cares. Like, even if you're being referred, you still have to go through the interview process. So learn how to interview, right? Interviewing is an art. It's almost like going to an acting class where you have to, because you're marketing yourself. You have to go in there and don't be so, like, Dr. Ichi said it very well. You have to not be fluffy. Like, yes, you're coming out as bold, but you have your shit together. Like, you're able to say, this is exactly how we do this from A to Z, because you really, not only do you know it, but you've practiced it. And then you've packaged it in such a way that your stories are short, because you don't want to take 10 minutes answering a question that you should answer for 3 minutes. That is literally a whole art. So learn how to be that rock star interviewee personally. Even if you call me to go for an interview as a doctor or whatever, and I've never done it, I will rock it. Trust me, I will. Why? Because I know what they want to hear. It's a dance. Now figure that out, because it's not about going in and telling them, I have this certification, I have this. No, it's about the most impactful stories. Those are the ones that rock the day, okay? Then thirdly, apply. Okay, that is the other thing people are missing. People don't want to apply. You want to sit and hope that your relative from somewhere is going to come and give you that job. There are no relatives here. These are white people. They don't know you. So you have to apply, right? I ask people who say, oh, I've been job hunting, I just have not been lucky. My first question would be, okay, show me your resume. Second question would be, how many applications have you done so far? How many do you do in a week? Somebody will tell you, I do 5. Imagine you're doing 5 and someone else is doing 20 a day. Who's going to get a job faster? The person that's doing 20 a day. So stop being lazy. And I'm just going to put it as it is, because that's being lazy. If you tell me you're doing 5, my question to you is, what are you doing with all your other time that you have? Because you need to move that from whatever you're doing there and sit down, create a whole block of time. Because I normally tell my clients, create a block of time on your calendar that's when nobody can disturb you, and say, this is my job hunting time. And that job hunting time is 2 hours of solid, no noise, all you're doing, because it's an art and it takes time. So if you're avoiding that process, you're going to be unemployed and working minimum wage for a really, really long time. But if you can just say, you know what, the next 6 months, I'm going to really, really look for that career coach or that person who can help me, right? I'm going to do what they tell me to do, because it's one thing to get the information. It's totally another to actually action it. Action it. The biggest success rates that I've found are the people who show up, ask questions, show up, because I will show up. I show up because that's just how I'm built. But if I show up and you, as the person who's looking for the job, doesn't show up and do the things I'm telling you, then it's all done. So a lot of people always ask me, oh, can you guarantee that I can get a job? You are your own guarantee, not me. I already have a job. I've had multiple jobs, and I can go ahead and get 10 other jobs. The question is, are you going to do the things I'm telling you that work today? People don't want to do that. So if you're that person that goes to all these coaching classes and then just puts that information, don't pay for another course. Don't do it. But if you know that you're going to do and action those things, do it. So I'll just summarize it. Get your resume together. Learn how to interview. Apply. Yeah, apply. Mm-hmm. And whatever you're told to do by those coaches or that course, action it, please, 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 please. Don't be the person that says, I think I know it. You don't know it. Otherwise, you would have been there. Right? That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you. Next question.
Sorry, can I say a few things about that
okay.
too? Because And Joanne, I don't know if you experience this a lot. I experience this a lot where someone says, could you talk to my nephew, niece, blah, blah, blah. And then, I sort of say, hey, I've been asked, to talk to you. And then I don't hear back. Or I hear, okay, hello. Or I'm like, okay, like, talk to me. So I think you have to be very intentional with what it is that you want to ask. Joanne, can you say it again? We don't have time. Saying hello and then nothing. Like, okay.
Oh my
Okay.
God, Dr. Ichi, let me just interrupt you. The most irritating thing ever in my life is when people text me hello and they leave it there, or they start, hello, hi. And then it's like, okay, what? Literally give me your entire spiel. Tell me everything that you want in one paragraph. Please, 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 people. Nobody has time to be hello, hi, how are you? And nobody. And by the way, I'll block you. Like I got to the point where I was like, if you start like that, I block you. I'm like, I can't deal with it. I can't.
Okay, I'm not there yet, but so okay, there's hello. Then now let me move to the question, right? The question is about coming to the US. And I always want to understand when you say you want to come to the US, like what does that, be more specific. What are you looking for? Duncan asked, what is required to swiftly transition into the labor market, say in the US, without any hurdles? By the way, that's impossible. Hurdles are going to come whether you have all the money in the world, all the technical skills, or you've gone through the experiences that Joanne did. Okay, technical education. Honestly, Kenyans are very educated. I'll say that, like in terms of formal education. But so is the rest of the world. The world, I'm telling you, Joanne can tell you about Microsoft. I can tell you about Google. How many PhDs we have from all over the world? It is highly competitive. Highly competitive. Now, let me tell you a secret. Every country has specific requirements in terms of what your qualifications should be to be able to get employment in that country. The US is extremely high. That means for you to come in and get a job based on your education, it has to be a very niche market. It has to be a very highly educated market. Now, Dublin is different. Switzerland is different. Brazil is different. So you have to know for the country you're targeting, and if you're going based on your technical education, because remember, the US has to say, I have not found anyone in this country who can match the skill set that I need. And so I'm getting Liz from Nairobi to come work. So Liz has to have a niche. And today, to be honest, ML. If anything you're doing has like machine learning, AI, plus you have really high education, then there's a chance. But I'll say this, getting a job solely based on your credentials is very difficult. So let's look at the other ways. Education. Me, I say this, honestly, if you want to leave Kenya and come to the US and you want to get a job in the US, I think one of the quote unquote less difficult paths is to come for a master's degree in the US. Because when you come for a master's degree in the US, then you have an opportunity maybe to translate your visa into a working visa and then maybe get a job. Nothing is guaranteed. But I think at the master's level, what I've seen, a lot of my friends, peers, I've seen at the master's level, that's where it seems to be not easy transition, but a less difficult transition. They just say, I have a PhD, I want to look for a job in the US. Ain't gonna happen. Oh, I'm coming in undergrad. Well, you have to go through undergrad. Maybe, hopefully something works out. But I think the master's one, I think there's there. And then there's also other ways, like if you have a business, maybe I'll provide a website that says, what are other ways that people actually get to work in the US? But I do want you to step back and say, what is it that I'm looking for? Joanne can tell you, we were told this is the land of milk and honey. You know how Joanne said she was homeless? I was homeless too. I was Bilachum too. I mean, like in Dr. Otiende, Betsy, they know my story. Like, and I'm sure, especially at a young age, when you come at a young age, you know nothing. You've come from privilege in Kenya where there was a maid taking care of washing your clothes, or there was a sijui what, you could go to the kiosk, there was a wachi, there was a savo. Like there was these things that were just there. Then suddenly you're thrown in a place and you look, hiya. Especially I'm the only son. Who's gonna wash my clothes? Who? Me. Where am I gonna get? Who's feeding me? Yeah, I have to work to get food. You know what I'm saying? So to Duncan, there is no swift transition. No swift transition. I think you do this. Once you figure out the path that's gonna get you here, then you find a community that can, by the way, that's a business too, eh? By the way, you can create a business about how to transition people to the US. And there's not going to be an easy transition, but there's going to be knowledge sharing that will help minimize some of the experiences that Joanne and I had when we came a long time ago.
Yeah. Another question for Dr. Ichi. Do you guys hire from intermediate to junior levels for SWE roles?
Yeah, so software engineering, SWE
Yeah.
roles, yes. There's so many programs that really cater to people who are like in school. We have a BOLD program that I always advertise. We have internship programs. And I've seen a lot of people who went the path of going to university, and then somewhere in between they got an internship at our company. Then when they finished university, they got an internship and got hired. So the short answer to that is yes. But I'd love to know, okay, so what is behind that question? Like, what is behind that question? I'm curious.
All right, so you started by saying he's a software engineer and he has a portfolio and products that they've launched in the market, but touching on how many layers to be specific, like a full stack role, would you advise someone to look into specialization first? So that's where he's coming from, to prepare for the roles in big tech companies, FANG, FAANG. Yeah.
So Leonard, contact me directly. I am not a SWE. I know nothing about SWE. What I can tell you, and Joanne, I'm curious to hear your point of view. I think first you really need to be honest with yourself. Do you want to be a specialist in something, right? I think there's some core skills that are independent of your domain expertise. In fact, I'll give you a secret. I'll tell you a secret. Well, secret I'm sharing with all these people. But when we had Google, you typically are going to have 5 different interviews, okay? You're going to have, so there's a lot, before you even get to the 5 interviews, there's telephone screening, blah, blah, blah. And what John talked about, resume reviews, like all of that. 1,000 people are applying for this job, then, one person is going to be hired, right? So the first, not in order, but I think it's important for everyone to know. One is leadership. We interview for leadership. So I'm going to interview you. I'm going to ask you a lot of questions to see how you lead. And that doesn't formal, like I have a manager, CEO title, but just how do you lead people? What is your leadership style? Are you adaptive? Are you empathetic? And a lot of scenario questions just to see how you lead people. The second one is called general cognitive ability, GCA. General cognitive ability is I'm going to ask you hypothetical questions to see how you break problems down and respond. So one of my best questions I like asking is, how do you explain cloud to a 6-year-old? Now, you may or may not know how to do it, but I want to see what are you going to, like what framework are you going to use in order to answer that question? Maybe you'll say, oh, I'll take a photo with my phone, then I'll go and look at the photo on my computer, and that's how cloud computing works. The picture went from my phone to the cloud, and then I was able to retrieve it from my machine. I don't care. It's just how do you answer it? And I think those two, particularly leadership and GCA, are skills that, if I can be honest, in Kenya, I was never taught those things because I was taught maths, biology, physics, right? I wasn't taught leadership. I wasn't taught general cognitive ability. So that's two. The third interview you're going to have is googliness. Okay, now googliness is, people say, what is googliness? Are you a nice person? How do you approach situations where you're engaging with people and they're not doing something you've asked them to do? How do you approach those situations where there's conflict? So we want to see that you're genuinely a nice person and you're not going to be upset because someone didn't do something and fire them, right? You're going to find out what's going on in their life. How can you help them? What priorities do they have? What other, right? Any of that stuff. And then as a program manager, the fourth type of interview I'm going to be asked is about program management. What are the phases? How do you lead cross-functional teams? How do you govern processes? So things related to program management. And then the fifth one that you're going to be asked is domain specific, meaning if you're going to be a program manager in networking, then the interview is about networking. If you're going to be a program manager in finance, then the fifth interview is about finance. If you're going to be a program manager in, supply chain management, about supply chain. So why did I reveal all this? Because I wanted to answer that question. Okay, I am a full stack SWE. Okay, for me, that's just a technical, that's 1 out of 5 that I'm looking for. What about the other 4? So being a specialist in a certain role is great, but beyond that, is this, what did we say this session is about? What are those career skills that you need? And I would argue, make sure you don't forget the other skills that are required for you to get a job, which are those other skills in the case that Google does. But more importantly is, how do you bring value to a company? And I would argue today is program management, what me and Joanne do, is a I cannot tell you how much money there is in program management. It's insane. And how many roles there are, right? And process improvement, that's another one. How do I look at a process and figure out how to make it better? And there's formal ways to learn that, right? But I've talked a lot, but I hope somewhere there I've answered the question.
Yeah, you have. I think as we wrap up, Joanne, what would you advise a candidate in Kenya who wants to apply for an online job in the US? How do they stand out?
So as Dr. Ichi said, it's number one, you have to understand that every country has rules, laws, and regulations, right? And most of the companies are going to say, hey, do you have either a green card? Do you have a work permit in this country to allow you to work here, right? So sometimes that's going to be a barrier, right? Because if you don't, you're not gonna proceed ahead. There are those screening questions that you're gonna be asked right off the bat before you even start anything. And
even if it's a remote job?
Even if it's a remote job, because it depends, right? It depends. Because there are some jobs which, as much as it's remote, they still want remote here in the US, not remote there, right? So it depends. Now, there are some other, companies that are willing. We do have people that work for us, but they sit in India, for example, right? We do have people that work for us, they sit, I don't know, in Germany, wherever they are. And that's a whole other thing. But tech companies in particular, I would say, are the easiest places to get jobs in because they sponsor. They do have the ability to pay for you to get those work permits. They've done all their law, whatever, to be able to figure out how to hire people, even if they're in different countries and all that. It's not every other company that wants to do that. It's a lot of money, it's a lot of time, it's hustle. They're like, we don't want to be involved in that business, right? So not to kill your dream, it's entirely possible to get one, but you also have to research. Go do your research online and figure out. They're all there. The information is everywhere. Which companies sponsor, which ones do not, which ones hire remote from other countries, which ones do not. Don't waste too much time going and focusing on the ones that don't. Focus on the ones that do, already sponsor and the ones that are like, hey, we actively are going to work with you on this process, and we are going to hire from everywhere. Then remember, those was a few. So meaning you have to be extremely outstanding for you to land those jobs in those companies. So yeah, so go ahead, do your research, figure out which companies these are, throw your hat in the ring, but make sure your stuff is solid. Make sure your resume is outstanding. Make sure the way you're doing your applications is really, really good. And as Dr. Ichi said, at the end of the day, when you go to those interviews, personally, I'm jealous of the people that say, in my entire career, I've only, been doing 2 interviews and then I get a job, or 3 interviews and then I get a job. I've never been one of those people ever. Like, unfortunately, I've always gone for jobs where it's 6 interviews. I actually did do one 9-round interview once, and I was like,
Wow.
what is going on? Like, at that point, I was like, I don't even know whether I'm coming or going, right? But the minimum that I've ever had is 5, the minimum. So if you're going to go for the big leagues, and if you're going to go to these companies, trust me, as he said, I'm not going to say anything more because Microsoft is very similar to what he said. It's going to be rigorous. It's going to be hard on your body because it's going to feel like, oh my gosh, I have to know all these things. I thought I only just needed to be a software engineer and just know full stack. That's just one interview. There's a whole 5 more or 4 more, 6 more that you have to think about. And most of it really boils down to, number one, the leadership that he talked about, because nobody's trying to run after you to tell you what to do. You need to come in knowing what you need to do. Because we don't have like things like you have to go swipe in, swipe out. That stuff doesn't exist for us. I get to plan my entire schedule because I start my day early. So by 3 p.m., I'm done. I've moved on to other things. My boss doesn't have to run after me to figure out, Joanne, did you go to work today? Joanne, did you go in? None of that. Leadership is, he knows I got it. Like, that's it. So we've never talked about schedules ever. He doesn't care whether I'm on a tree, wherever I am, because he knows stuff will get done, right? And so leadership is super important. So as you're building those skills, remember that you have to be a whole person. And likability, as I said, unlike in Kenya or in our culture, where as a manager, you have to be the person that goes in and hammers everybody and makes people feel bad, it's the opposite. You're supposed to be, as I said, very empathetic, the person that is a people leader, because they are grooming you in essence, no matter the position you're starting from, to be a leader someday, right? So they want to know, are you the person that's going to cause acrimony where people will be running away from you and running out of the company because of your leadership style? Or are you the person that's going to come in here and really gel in, bring that positive attitude, bring that just amazing atmosphere? Because one person can spoil an entire department simply because they're just crazy. So there's so many things you need to be looking at, and be likable. I can just tell you, some of the jobs I've gotten, people told me within 5 minutes I spoke to you and I knew I was hiring. I had not said anything technical, nothing. It was just simply, tell me a little bit about yourself. Why? Because I think I come off as very, very likable, right? So you don't want to be the person that's like coming in and you're like, low energy, everything is doom and gloom and life is over. Companies hire people that have great energy, and most importantly, people who show passion. I remember, let me tell you a funny story, and I'm going to leave it at that. So I was interviewing at Microsoft, and I was still at AWS, right, at Amazon. And it was my last interview, and it was with what sort of like the boss of the boss. Like, he was just, we were just having a conversation. I've already done all the other stuff. So it's just, let me just get to know this person you want to hire. So we talk, and then he says, okay, and I was talking about the way I love Microsoft, about the way I love their mission and all that stuff, the products, the way, since I was a kid, I know how to spin the story. And I was just like so passionate. The stuff that they just launched, I just watched Ignite. This is what you guys did. I love that feature because I do really love Microsoft. So it came out. So he asked me a question, can you tell me what the mission of Amazon is? And I went blank. Like, I could not for the life of me remember what the mission was. And so I was like, oh, dang. Like in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, I cannot. I'm searching. And he keeps quiet and he's like, that weird silence. And then finally, I'm like, you know what? That's how much I love Microsoft, to the point that I don't even care about Amazon anymore. I literally don't even know what the mission is because I'm already working here. I can see myself here. And I got the job just like that. Why? Because it just comes down to, number one, likability. And he laughed so hard because he knew I blanked. But even when I blanked, I just showed so much passion for this company. And so be passionate about that. Sometimes you might not have the tech. I had never worked with Azure before. I didn't know how they were doing their stuff. I only knew AWS. But I was hired because I was so passionate and I don't know, but I'm willing to learn. The learn it all attitude. I can come in, learn it, nail it, and keep it moving. That is it. Okay, that's it.
All righty. Thank you so much for sharing your insights about, leadership and how to demonstrate that even as we go about the transitions from where we are to where we want to be. I'd like to hand over back to Mark. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And this has been a very good session. I appreciate everyone. I was just listening to what Ichi and John was talking about. And one thing I realized is that I remember, at one point I was doing a lot of interviews. I would apply, do like 4 interviews in a day. And I would go to the website, do my research, try to master every objective, mission, and vision of the organization. And going back to what Ichi just said, most of the interviews that I was doing, technical skill was just part of it. There were so many things that they were looking at. And as much I remember one I did with Costco, and the only problem is that there was this platform they were using, point of sale. So the technical skill wasn't as good, but for other skills, I was able to do well. I remember finally when we were only 2 people left, and the hiring manager called me and said, I really want to hire you, but still there's something that I'm looking at. You are 2 people, and the technical skill is what I'm still looking at, and see if it be able to crack it. And so we went to the final interview, and of course the other guy was selected. But still, I got an email from them telling me that they would wish even to create something for me that never existed. Like, they were only, having a position for one person, but because of other skills that I demonstrated throughout the interview, and of course he did like about 6 interviews, And so I know technical skills one, but other skills can also prove to be very important. And I think, so there's these techniques that, Ichi talked about fumble, but again, there's this stuff which is common, talk about the situation, the task, the action you took. And then that's where now it comes to you talk about what you did and the result that you were able to get after all that. So this a very good session. I know Ichi also talked about global mentorship initiative. I think those are things that we need to think about. I remember when we had a conference in Kenya, and one of the speakers told me that out of that, he had like about 11 people who wanted him to be their mentor. And he did that. And I think we are going to, going forward, we are going to think along those lines. I mean, this is like very, very important platform for us. So Kenya US Tech Forum, celebrating a 1 year old since it was incorporated this month, has been able to achieve a lot. And so we've been able to, engage into this kind of meaningful discussions, explore the opportunities. We've been able to promote tech-driven initiatives that are aimed at either addressing the challenges that we are facing or showcasing the cutting-edge technologies, and we're able to chart the way forward in a more sustainable way. And I want to appreciate, because when we had a conference back in Nairobi 2 months ago, and it was very intense. Most of these things were being done when we are here. Most of us were meeting for the first time. People were meeting for the first time. People were having meetings, discussing those things online. And then we met. And it was such a success that by the time we ended, I got motivated. Ichi has just mentioned some of the books that he's read or he's reading, and as advised people, recommended for people. One of the things that this forum or the conference that we attended, I was motivated. I was trying to write about a book about myself, and after that, I got so much motivation. I came back within a week. I was able to put together everything, and I published a book. You can check out my book. It's I can recommend it to you people. But the most important thing is that we have one more event that we're going to have. Talk about AI, talk about machine learning, and of course, some of the trending topics in technology. We're going to have one more event before the end of the year. This year has been very good. I'm looking forward to having even a more successful year next year. We'll be able to invite everyone to give their opinions of having even more. I'm thinking at it, even if we're going to have more physical events per state, if possible, so that we could have one in Atlanta, Georgia, Marime being in Texas, we could have, some things. There are so many Kenyans. And Marime just said something. I'll tell you this. I love what people do in healthcare. But that's not the only thing that we can do here. I'm really, advocate of people getting into tech, because for me, I think tech, there's many opportunities in tech, and I think those are things that we may want to explore. Not now, but even in future. But we have to start it now. So we need to, diversify. We need to think about how we could motivate people, how to mentor people, how to help people get to the tech, how to get people, help people get jobs and referrals. And so that's one of the ways that Kenya USAID Forum is going to support our people. And I'm looking forward to support of everyone, most importantly, Dr. Ichi and Marime. Asanteni sana. Asanteni sana. The floor is open, so I'll give 1 minute, 2 minutes for anyone who can be able to who has anything so pressing that they would wish to share. Anyone? Anyone wants anything that they want to share? Sorry. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we
Okay.
can hear you.
Anyone? Okay. If you don't, then I'll ask
I think I
Dr.
have something to say.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yes, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Okay. So this is Julius, and definitely to everyone who has presented and talked in this call, I believe there will be a lot that you have listened and shared from you. And just to realize, indeed, there is a lot of concern in terms of changes in technology and emerging issue and trend. That means, indeed, if you are planning to have another meeting that is constantly not going to focus on those kind of technology that are coming up, I think it's going to be so nice. And I would suggest most of the time, possibly we would start by even having a nice mobilization so that we can have a good number of people within the core. And also, because all this knowledge that are being shared, sometimes you get out there, still you find your friends and colleagues that are still asking you, on a inbox. But if they have a chance to come in and listen from different people who have an experience within the industry, then that means it's going to make an impact and different. And for them to make a decision towards bettering themselves, increasing the chance of them leveraging toward a good position of what they have. So thank you so much, Mark, and to everyone who has presented. And I came a little bit late because I was having another meeting, but definitely as a person, I really enjoyed, and I'm looking forward for a good indeed to attend a chance again that we are going to have this kind of a meeting. Thank you, Mark, and everyone who has.
Yeah, thank you so much. So it's
contributed.
really, yeah, thank you so much, Julius. I know you're doing a good job for supporting our students who want to pursue further studies. I think Ichi mentioned that the best way of how to get here is through masters, and I know you are doing that to help students who want to come here to do their masters. We appreciate that. Yeah, any one more person? If we don't have, I will ask. Yeah, so the recording will be shared in our YouTube channel, and then or our social media platform, LinkedIn. Please check out the Kenya US Tech Forum. We'll be able to share that. Thank you so much, Dr. Ichi.
Yes, Dr.
Thank you
Uma.
for always being available. I appreciate this so much, my brother. I remember 2 weeks ago, no, last week, before you went to Kenya, you asked me if there's anything you would do to, to talk to the young people and all that. And I was able to connect with Dr. Vera, and I'm grateful that last week you had a session with the students in USIU, and it's so much impactful. That's what we can do to our people, and that's exactly what I want us to do. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, and welcome back to US. John, you traveled with me all the way to Kenya last 2 months, and I'm happy that you're able to, use your own flight, pay for your flight to come to Kenya to attend to create this great movement that you are doing for the people of Kenya. I appreciate and I'm appreciating you being here available again this morning.
I'm going to be in Kenya for the people who are here in December. So I'll probably let you guys know where I will be. If you guys want to talk to me, let's have coffee. Let's talk about your whatever you guys want to talk about, your careers, and I'd be happy to catch up. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm thinking that we will have this kind of mentorship that Ichi was talking about. We would have, like, I know there are many people who are going to Kenya, like every month or every other month somebody's going to Kenya. We'll have Vice Chancellor of USIU was a nice person. I think, like, we had talked about something. We need to have maybe a center or something like that, where whenever you are available, anyone going to Kenya could be able to have people coming in and they can be able to talk about these important things. We need to, mentor these young people. So yeah, we'll be able to do that. I think we'll connect later and be able to see what you can do with the people back home when you're going to be in Kenya. So thank you so much. Thank you everyone for attending. I thank you for KUSAT members, those who have been here since the beginning, when we started last year and today. I think we're creating more impact. We are trying to change the lives of people, and this is so wonderful. The conference had very, very, very serious impact on lives of people, and it went so well. And the feedback we're getting from everyone was that we're doing a good job. Let's keep on doing what we're doing and in a better way. So allow me to, ladies and gentlemen, to end. Before I do that, I want to ask Dr. Vera Otiende. Vera?
Yes, I can hear you.
Please close with the word of prayer for us.
Okay, so thanks so much. Just before I pray, maybe to appreciate the speakers and for the listeners who are here, I think we have had some good moments. And of course, I've interacted with Dr. Ichi in person. We had a great session last week, and he left a footprint on the hearts of the students. And so keep on doing the good work that you're doing. May God bless you. Let's pray. Mighty and ever-living Father, we thank you for this wonderful day that you've given us. We are grateful because you've taken good care of us, but most importantly, you've taken us through this session. We've gotten wisdom from Joanne and Ichi, Lord. We want to thank you for all they've shared, and we want to ask you that you open our hearts, you open our minds, you open our confidence, and you give us the courage to try and apply all the math that they've been able to share. We thank you for all these initiatives the team in the US is trying to put into place just to give people a bit of knowledge and ideas around how to navigate opportunities across the world. Besides that, Lord, we ask you to bless the works of our hands, keep on gifting us as you have always been, but most importantly, grant us good health. All this we ask, trusting and believing in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And I look forward to seeing you again in the next coming days, weeks.